This is the Mint live on ZTN Prime as a broadcast to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. I'm Eben, Mabunda. Let's get started. Now, coming up on the Mint. According to statistics released by Zimstat, 897 people died in traffic accidents between 2019 and 2022. Approximately 2,079 people lost their lives in 52,585 road traffic accidents recorded in 2022 alone. The battle against lawlessness on Zimbabwe's roads and in Harare's CBDs has been on for ages, a cat and mouse chase, so to speak. Now, according to Statutory Instrument 118 of 2023, all public service vehicles shall be fitted with a speed limiting device so that such vehicles will not exceed 100 kilometers per hour. The Standards Association of Zimbabwe has given 25 companies the green light to install speed limiting devices on public service vehicle. On the Mint today, we look at these and other matters. The Mint to be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Mint, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance, and economies. I'm Eben Mabunda. Now, on the subject of conversation today is how to enhance safety on Zimbabwe's roads. Now, according to statistics released by Zimstat, 8,897 people died in traffic accidents between 2019 and 2022. Approximately 2,100 people lost their lives in 52,585 road traffic accidents recorded in 2022 alone. Now, as a mitigation effect, according to Statutory Instrument 118 of 2023, all public service vehicles shall be fitted with a speed limiting device so that such vehicles will not exceed 100 kilometers per hour. The Standards Association of Zimbabwe has given 25 companies the green light to install speed limiting devices on public service vehicles. I'm now joined by Kabudura, the Chief Executive Officer of Latrom Systems, one of the licensed institutions to install these speed limiting devices. Mr. Kabudura, hello and welcome to the Mint.
Hello, Eben, how are you? Thank you very much for inviting me.
Fantastic. Now, to get the ball rolling, how important is transport as well as road infrastructure towards Zimbabwe's economic advancement?
I would say it is the backbone of any economic growth or any advancement of any country, should we say. I would think that without transport, the production or manufacturing and even delivery, people going to work, would be really affected negatively.
Right. Now, what is your assessment of the state of safety on Zimbabwe's roads?
I think that's a very interesting question because really, I'm sure all of us, we can see that things have really gone bad. I would say that the majority of people are doing whatever they want, and it seems that things are really bad, a disaster waiting to happen because everything is upside down, to say so to speak.
Right, a high state of anarchy, so you suppose, and you say it's disaster waiting to happen. My question is, has disaster not already occurred? According to stats, 8,900 people died in traffic accidents between 2019 and 2022. What are the major causes of these accidents?
So perhaps just to add a little bit on what we mentioned earlier, so you would see that it's already a disaster. A lot of people have been dying, but failure to actually take some necessary steps, even worse, is going to happen. So you can see that perhaps the major contributing factor of these carnages is drivers being reckless, and especially if you think of the drivers for the PSVs, public service vehicles, heavy duty vehicles, even now private vehicles, people are just doing whatever they want. Like recently you see someone on the traffic light, he comes and you're supposed to be stopping. They go to your right, off they go. They just pass a red traffic light instead of stopping. So really we can say things are bad And these are the contributing factors for people not really sticking to the rules that are set by the government.
But where do we draw the line between the effect of negligence by drivers as well as the state of the road network in Zimbabwe, which many would want to state that is very much in bad shape?
I would agree that the roads on their own, they're really bad, as you say. And of course, it could contribute a little bit to some of these, but to a major degree, it's more to do with the attitude of the drivers themselves, the speeding that are not being curbed, and also the carelessness of people in the roads. No matter that they're bad, people know that when something is really bad, you need to have due care, consideration of others in the road. But that's not happening. Of course, the roads are bad, but it's more to do with the attitude of the drivers that we're seeing around CBD now.
Right. What is your take on the extent of cooperation between government and the private sector in trying to deal with the issues that are affecting our road network in this country?
For starters, I would like to say that I have got high regard for the government and the SI that they brought in. In fact, right from 2015, when they brought in SI for 2015, which had to do with also PSVs, which were being curbed on speed. It actually started a long time ago, 2015. But that SI had to do with speed monitoring. So they separated the two. So they were monitoring the speed and it was feeding into the government control unit servers. But now, in this case...
just before we move on to this case, I want us to go to town about that.
Okay.
With the statutory instruments that came into 2015, was there a due diligence and was there proper follow-through to the monitoring of the speed of the PSVs in this country?
I would like to think that, the Ministry of Transport, they tried, and the VID, they did their level best to actually follow through. But of course, you notice that they have to be live feed into the system for the government to see that everyone is abiding. So if someone doesn't abide, how do they follow through if they do not have a connection to the government? So perhaps our system, our infrastructure, our technical systems are not really up to date like any other country where everybody is enforced to be able to connect to the government server. So I would say perhaps 60% it worked, but still there was a gap that could have caused now or triggered or kick-started the government to say, look, why don't you look at it again? Why don't you do something more? Because you see, this was just kind of controlling the heavy vehicles and the buses only, which means the rest, they could do whatever they wanted.
All right. According to Statutory Instrument 118 of 2023, all public service vehicles shall be fitted with a speed limiting device so that such vehicles will not exceed 100 kilometers per hour. How important is this?
I would personally think it's really key. It's really important. Of course, I've got other additional comments I would make, but looking at just the initiative for the government to actually come up with that SI 118 of 2023, it's very key because it's going now to help us curb those kind of reckless speeds that we're experiencing. Because remember, like I said, 2015, it was more of monitoring. It means you're just seeing that that driver is going beyond speed, but you're not curbing. You can still go whatever speed that you want. But in this case now, we're not allowing him to pass 100 kilometers per hour for a bus, and for a truck, it's 80 kilometers per hour. So to a larger degree, it's actually helping in reducing the accidents that are occurring each and every day.
Right, that's the statutory instrument. What has this meant for bus and truck operators?
So it meant that, before they actually take their bus or whatever vehicle into the roads, they have to be compliant, which means that they have to fit the gadget with those who are approved. And of course, it's not just being done for free. It's more like if the government was putting the cameras in the road, we say the government has taken the initiative. But now the operators need to fork out a bit of some money. Now, it's a bit of some sacrifice and appreciation of why this is being done. If someone would actually come to terms with the reasons, then of course they would cooperate and do the same. So we're hoping that the businesses, they'll be able to understand the initiative, the reasons, and of course supporting the initiatives of the governments.
Right. As Latrom Systems, you are also among the installers of these devices. How much are you charging for these devices?
Okay. So I would say we do have various programs when it comes to charges, or I'd say packages. So the packages vary from, we do have now vehicles coming from other countries fitted already which means that the government cannot just say, look, because your vehicle came from UK, so it's compliant because it's a computer box. So we normally do our assessment. So basically our assessment is about $50. Then we can give someone a certificate to say that you're compliant. But now we can find a vehicle that doesn't have a limit already. But now we've got two packages. The first one is for a vehicle with electric pump. Okay. You know, those that are controlled by electronics, the whole system. Some of them, they are manual, whereby you manually have to control the pump with a key, then it kicks on the solenoid and things like that. So the one with electric pump is going for about $150, and it's coupled with a tracking unit together. It's a combo unit. Yes. So you can track your vehicle at the same time you can do speed limiting. But there is another one that doesn't have electric pump. That's a bit difficult. Back then, in ancient times, when they wanted to reduce the speed, they would put a bolt on the accelerator, if you remember that. Yeah. So when you press the accelerator, it cannot go too far. So we use the same concept. We employ the use of a pedal controller, which is a wire. So remember, when you press the accelerator, it pulls a wire for manual ones. So inside the dashboard, we connect our wire there for the electronic pedal controller. When the speed is reached, it triggers the wire to start rolling up. So it will then make it tight that if someone wants to press beyond 80 kilometers, the accelerator is as hard like a stone. So we achieve the same result. That one would take us to about $235.
Right, so we're looking at a cost of $150 to $235 US dollars per device.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what has been the reception out of your own experience as the CEO of Latrom?
I would say it's quite interesting that people are very different depending on which company it is or the type of business they're running. For example, I may not mention specifically, maybe I would do, especially one of the most compliant customer that we have, which is a mine, which is Zimbabwe. They are known of being compliant. Zimbabwe Mimosa, they are known of being compliant in Zimbabwe, and they are the leaders in teaching people how really to respond to these. These companies had the initiative before even the SI unit. They requested us to actually test the speed limiting, which was quite interesting. And you find that their reception to these issues was excellent. It was quite easy.
Right. Let's talk about the aspects of compliance there. Yes, there is a statutory instrument. How robust is the statutory instrument at ensuring that there is compliance by all public service vehicle operators?
I don't know if I'm going to be quite positive about the SI there, but to say the truth, to call a spade, I would think that there's a little bit of a problem there. Because despite the fact that the SI is very clear on what needs to be done, the problem is enforcement. Now, I can tell you from my experience that as we are doing the installation, I can guarantee you that we are one of the honest installers in the field. When we go, we've got customers who say, just give me a certificate and you don't need to fit a device. Maybe just make it $100 or something like that. We have made it clear that we better lose the money. So now you find out that in terms of compliance, it has been a very difficult journey because nobody's really enforcing. Now the police, how do they enforce when a vehicle is taken to VID? They have to drive the vehicle to see if it's getting to 100 kilometers per hour. Can you do that in CBD? You can't. So they rely on the certificate that is generated by me as an installer. So if I'm not honest, the problem is now it's a disaster because they are trusting us. So perhaps something that needs to be audited, looked at closely so that the system will work better. It's a bit of a problem.
And there are 25 of you out there. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So what do you think needs to be done by the authorities to enforce, the implementation of the speed limiters program?
I remember quite well when the journey started, when the invitation was made to companies to come and start. What happened is that it was very difficult to go through the SARS testing, because it was such a complex thing because we had to change even the program of the devices and everything else. So you find that the first 4 companies that were approved, which were 2 in Zimbabwe and 2, one from Kenya, one from Rwanda, they did a superb job in doing that job. So what happened later, the rest of the companies were now copying. So they would just come say to Latrom and say, I've got 2 cars that I need to be installed. You think it's a customer. So they have it installed, they drive it to SARS, get it tested, they say, oh, you did well. So the problem we're having now is the majority of the added companies, they may not be really qualified to do the job, which is posing a very big challenge. So I would think that the government needs to do a bit of an audit as to the installations being done that would actually expose and see exactly who is doing a proper installation.
Right. A question that I'll pose is that you raised an estimation, 60% in terms of the implementation of the statutory instrument that was meant to monitor the speed of vehicles in 2015, right? And now in 2023, we see the implementation of a speed limit system that is actually in place. Given that we did not see a full successful operation from 2015 up to this point, what are some of the pitfalls that you found in the 2015 that Zimbabwe should not run into with the 2023 statutory instrument for speed limiters?
I would think that it would be quite good if the government can help the police, those who are enforcing, with all the instruments that they need, the equipment that they need to enforce.
What kind of equipment do they need?
So, for example, when it comes to speed limiting, every vehicle is fitted, it may be fitted with a Bluetooth printer, which a police may need just to press just a click of a button. They need to print a report of the past 6 hours of the speed of the, that particular vehicle. Or they could have a phone that they can connect on Bluetooth, then they can connect the device wirelessly from where they are standing when they stop it. They can actually print on screen all the speeds for the past 6 hours or 72 hours. So without the provision of the softwares, the printers to the police, we are not arming them enough.
Where else is it being done in that particular manner in the region?
So if we were to talk about Africa, obviously Kenya comes as a very good example. Rwanda is doing that. Those are very good in implementing that. Yes.
Within Southern Africa?
Yes, very true.
Within Southern Africa, which countries? You spoke about East African countries, Kenya and Rwanda. In Southern Africa?
I would like to think now it's very close to, it's now being done in South Africa, not yet in Mozambique and Malawi. South Africa is a good example now, using the tachograph more because they can print. They've implemented that for quite a bit of some time.
And then when you look at Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa, these are the leaders in terms of digital infrastructure on the continent. For an economy like Zimbabwe, which is still miles behind these countries that we spoke about, what can be done to digitalize some of our systems in our roads to ensure that there is a certain degree of safety compliance going forward?
I personally think that needs to start with the government itself. It needs to start with the ministry and the Minister of Transport to educate people, like, what we normally do with issue of AIDS and everything. You've got posters, billboards everywhere, getting people to understand what they need to do. Why not do the same with speed limiters? Why not do the same with safety? Because it's something that is very critical. So education is the key, because there is a bit of ignorance in what we can achieve from these speed limiters.
Now, time for us to take a breather. Of course, we are discussing how to enhance safety in Zimbabwe's roads, as well as also the statutory instrument of 2023, which requires all public service vehicles, that means the trucks and the buses, to ensure that they have speed limiters installed. Now, we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we look at the various aspects of road safety in Zimbabwe. The minute to be right back. Don't go anywhere.
In a world where music transcends boundaries, where rhythm and melody unite the hearts of people, comes a show that celebrates the power of music like never before. Get ready to dive into a sonic journey that will leave you mesmerized and yearning for more. Welcome to the captivating world of Z Vibes. Vibe to it, baby.
And we really don't give a what.
Welcome back to The Mint, your sneak peek into the world of business, finance, and economies. I'm Eben Mabunda. We are continuing with the conversation of having speed limiters in this country on the back of a statutory instrument that was passed in 2023, which requires all buses and all trucks to have speed limiters to ensure that they do not go beyond the 100 kilometers per hour yardstick. And of course, we are in conversation with the last Kabudura, the chief executive of Latrom Systems, one of the companies mandated by the government to be installing these speed limit devices. And this is one out of the 25 that we've got in the country, you said.
Yes.
Right. Now, how many bucks and trucks have you serviced as an entity thus far? And perhaps what is your assessment of the quantity of the installations across the board by other market players?
I would say as Latrom Systems installations, we've done plus or minus 350 from January. I can say perhaps we are one of the highest in terms of installations.
Out of the 25?
Yes, but of course we still have quite a number who have larger numbers than us, because we believe, we could be wrong, we believe that a number of people are taking shortcuts whereby they're just putting certificates. So I don't know if the installation, they've got larger numbers, because now we've gone back where we installed vehicles. We realized this is a tag for a company. We check and there's no speed limiter, but they have a certificate on the vehicle. So yeah, that's like we were talking about that. These are the loopholes that are there. We can say on average, yeah, people are doing quite well, but I think the majority haven't really accepted the change. A lot are resisting quite a little bit. I'll
ask this again. I know that I asked a similar question before we took the break. What else can be done to tighten the system and get rid of some of those loopholes?
I would think that for starters, in fact, there is a time when we had a seminar, a meeting with the Ministry of Transport, or the installers, or the stakeholders. It was agreed that perhaps an auditing team could be effective if it was going to be considered. Imagine that we had a team that would do spot checks on companies themselves, on the installations that they're doing, and the compliance that they have themselves as installers. That's, for starters, a very important option. Number two, as I mentioned, police need to do their job also, but I think they're quite effective, but they need to be equipped enough so that they can see all the loopholes that are being done. Without equipment, how can they enforce?
Right. There have been concerns about there being faulty devices resulting in bus and truck operators being resistant to the installation of some of these devices, with some of them complaining that, they could actually be of a destructive nature. May you address those concerns by bus and truck operators?
I think that's important that you brought that question, Eben, because it will actually help a lot of people in the long run. Because you find out that currently in Europe, they have now come up with a strict rule that any new vehicle, whether it's a private, as tiny as it is supposed to have a speed limiter. And now they've actually taken this an extra mile. They are saying it's not a limiter to a specific speed, like 100 kilometers or 80, but it's as per geolocation. So they're saying, okay, we know a country like Zimbabwe. From here to Bulawayo, I know there are about maybe 9 cities. I'll put a software that we have all the drawings of every point, so that whenever a vehicle gets to there, it's logged per speed, depending on the location. Location, if it's 20 kilometers, we don't have to say 100 kilometers. We have to log based on the radius, because perhaps some hazardous requires that the speed goes down to 20 kilometers per hour. So I would feel that that lead, that initiative will actually even help a bit more, because now when you think about the issue of burning the vehicles that I've been mentioning, or perhaps the, that other people are doubting using these devices, the question is, why would then the Europe or the first world countries have all the vehicles fitted? Over the years, they've been doing that. And look at it. If you look at Scanias or the Mercedes that are coming now, they are already fitted with on-board speed limiters. So this has been traditionally the system that was on vehicles. So I'll then address the reason why we are having this problem. Perhaps, if I am correct, I feel that some of the companies that were approved, remember SARS when they were doing, they did not approve. I just wanted to correct a bit of some words that people were using around in the market. So SARS does not approve. So I can say it on air because I'm 100% sure. They do what they call lab testing. So they test a device, they don't approve. So they will never say to the ministry, we approved this device, so go ahead. They are saying, we've provided you with this lab test. It's your decision to say, is he qualified? So you find that on their paper for the certificate they gave us, even our company, they mentioned, don't use our logo as approved by SARS. We only provide a lab test. So it's needed to have due diligence from the government and the ministry to approve the right people. It seems that perhaps some of those people who are saying this is an opportunity for business, they jumped into it. They may not have the skills, they may not have the resilience that is needed in the field. Maybe they are taking shortcuts. Maybe they are not installing it well. That's my personal feeling that needs to be addressed.
Right. What about the commuter omnibuses, the combis, as it were? We spoke about the buses and the trucks. Where do the combis fit into this jigsaw puzzle?
I think it's a question I was also wondering, but I'll just share a bit that I know what I had. Initially, when we spoke, it was my understanding that combis or omnibus were supposed to be limited. But to our surprise, we realized that VID is not asking for that. What they then alluded to was the mass. They said that a truck or vehicle of 4.6 is the one that is expected to be fitted. Now, combis in the SI of 2015, like I mentioned, they were excluded on that. Since they are smaller than 4.6, now the tonnage, they were excluded. Eventually, you see now there is a big problem.
And the 2023 one?
It's excluded again because now you see it's gray. In fact, I wouldn't say it's excluded. It has gray areas where it says PSV period. It doesn't mention which period, but it goes on to say 4.6 mass and above. Combis do not qualify under that. So for that reason, perhaps there was a bit of some adjustment that needs to be done because these are the most contributing, culprits in terms of the carnages that we're experiencing now.
Now, lastly, as we're about to wrap up, how important is investment in digital infrastructure toward enhancing Zimbabwe's safety as far as the roads are concerned?
I personally think that it goes without saying that this is the best policy. In fact, I should say this is the only policy. I remember one country that we were trying, remember Latrom is across Southern Africa now. So one of the countries that we were trying to pitch this idea, they said to us when a celebrity is coming or the team of soccer is coming to our country, when they hear that our roads are safe, they are smiling. I think it goes without saying in Zimbabwe. When we promote the safety of our roads, the infrastructure, we are bringing business and the economy be strong. We don't want to ignore these because really these are the pros and cons of our economy growing or going further. And this is important if we were to look at it in a positive way.
Last, Kabudura, the CEO of Latrom Systems. Sir, thank you for joining us on The Mint.
Thank you very much, Eben.
And of course, that's a wrap on today's episode of The Mint. Remember to catch us every weekday at 2 p.m. Central African Time for the juiciest business stories in Zimbabwe, on the continent and beyond. And of course, let us know your thoughts and comments via our social media handles at Zimpaper's TV Network as well as at ZTN Prime. I'm Eben Mabunda, the Money Man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good day.